Collegium system has evolved since years. Collegium system is a process of appointment and transfers of judges of Supreme Court and High Court in India. Executive has a supremacy in the judicial appointments in India in the first judges cases. More transparent mechanism of appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court. So independence of judiciary means that judiciary should be independent from the other two organs of the government. The NJAC Act was declared as null and void. Hello everyone, welcome to the session. So recently the Chief Justice of India has orally expressed his view that again Supreme Court would reconsider the public interest litigation, that is PIL, against the revival of National Judicial Appointment Commission. So currently we have a collegium system of appointment of judges. Supreme Court would consider the plea that again whether we are in a position to revive this National Judicial Appointment Commission or not. So that brings us to a very important topic for the examination, that is appointment of judges in higher judiciary, that is Supreme Courts and the High Court. So what exactly the Constitution says when it comes to appointment of judges, followed by how is the current system of appointment of judges working in the country, that is the collegium system of appointment, how this collegium system has evolved since years. And then we are going to see in 2014 we had this National Judicial Appointment Commission Act through the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2014. But in 2015 this NJAC was declared as null and void as it violated the basic structure of the Indian Constitution. Now again the debate has sparked that again whether the appointment process of higher judiciary in India, is it transparent, is it accountable? So all of these matters we are going to listen and address in this particular video. So let's start with a very simple thing. What does the Constitution says when it comes to appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court? So as per Article 124 clause 2 and Article 217, so it deals basically with the idea of how exactly the judges of Supreme Court and High Courts will be appointed, right? So the essence of the article is that again the President of India is going to appoint judges of both Supreme Court and High Court under his hand and seal. So again, there is no confusion. Both judges of Supreme Court and High Court are appointed by the President of India under his hand and seal. And it tells the President appoints the judges after, the word here is consulting. Very important word, and it has been very much interpreted in the three judges case which you're going to see. So the Constitution says the President is the one who is going to appoint the judges of Supreme Court and High Court with consulting with such judges of Supreme Court and High Court as necessary. So this is where the Constitution says that the President is going to appoint the judges of Supreme Court and High Court after consulting such number of judges of Supreme Court and High Court as necessary. So it is something what the text of the Indian Constitution says. Clear? So the Constitution basically does not tell us very clear procedure with respect to appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court, and that has led to what? Judicial interpretation. Because judiciary is the organ of the government which is considered as, and in fact which is the protector of Indian Constitution. Whenever there is an ambiguity with respect to understanding the text of the Constitution, judicial interpretation comes into picture. And this is where the text of the Constitution is not clear that how exactly we are going to appoint the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, and this has led to judicial interpretation. So this is something we call as the collegium system of appointment, which has evolved in the process, or evolved as a process of appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court. So what exactly is this collegium system? So collegium system is a process of appointment and transfers of judges of Supreme Court and High Court in India. that is called as collegium system. It is very important to understand why do we call it as a collegium, right? So again, we'll discuss that as well. So it evolved, this whole idea of appointment of judges has been due to a judicial interpretation of the text of the constitution, which was not clear that how exactly would be the appointment process of judges of Supreme Court and High Court. And there is no act of parliament which is telling how exactly judges is going to be appointed. It is as per the Supreme Court judgments in these three judges cases, right? So it is of course ensuring that judicial independence is given while appointing the judges of Supreme Court and High Court. That is basically called as the collegium system. So collegium system is not done by the legislative organ, that is a parliament. It is a judicial interpretation of appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court, which was not clear in the text of the Indian Constitution. So this collegium system has went through an what do we call as a evolution. So we had the very first judges case in the year 1981. So the appointment of judges of Supreme Court was basically done by the President of India upon consultation with as number of judges of Supreme Court and High Court as necessary he was considering. So this is something which was followed until the year 1981. But that led to one series of the series of let's say cases through which the judicial appointment process in India has evolved, and that is we call as evolution of the collegium system. In the first judges case, again, the word here was what we understood, consultation. The text of the constitution says consultation is required, right? So Supreme Court in this appointment process of a judge of a high court, consultation in the article 140 124 clause 2 and article 217 does not mean concurrence. So again, it is very interesting to understand concurrence. Let's say if I want to take a decision for my family, I would consult one of my friend, I will consult one of my family members, but that does it mean ki I am bounded by the decisions what they're giving me or whatever suggestions they're giving me. This is a very layman understanding of consultation and concurrence. Consultation is only the meaning that again I am just consulting you, I am asking your opinion, right? Concurrence means ki once I have given an opinion to you, you are bounded by opinion what I have given to you. So that is something which was interpreted in the first judges cases. Ki let's say if president is consulting the judges of Supreme Court and High Court for appointment of the judiciary or the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, that does not mean it is something to be considered as concurrence. It means the decisions or the recommendations which are given by the judges of Supreme Court and High Court are not binding on the president. So this is something which again has clarified ki consultation only means consultation, does not mean what we call as concurrence. It meant what? So president is appointing. President is which organ of the government? The executive organ of the government. So of course, it basically tells ki executive has a major role or executive has a supremacy in the judicial appointments in India in the first judges cases. So that was something which was done in the first judges cases. Ki president is consulting the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, but the recommendations which are given by the judges of Supreme Court and High Court is not binding on the President of India. So basically, President, who is the executive organ of the government, was having a judicial or maybe a supremacy in the appointment of judges in India, right? Then in the year 1993, right, then we had this second judges cases. So in this particular case, the idea of consultation concurrence made a little bit clarity, because it told that again the consultation also means concurrence. If president is consulting the judges of Supreme Court and High Court that you recommend to me that who do you think are fit enough to be appointed as a judges of Supreme Court and High Court, so that meant in after second judges cases that consultation basically means concurrence. It means the president is bounded by the advice which is being given to them by the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, and that has led to the formation of the collegium system. So basically collegium means ki that if president is seeking for an opinion, he would go to a body, and that body is called as a collegium, and that collegium will consist of the Chief Justice of India plus the two senior most judges of Supreme Court. So that was the authority which president would go, and that is called as a collegium, and collegium will give advice to the president, which is that who they think, of course, is going to be fit enough to be appointed as the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, and the president was bound to accept the names which were given to him by the collegium. So that is a basic idea. So again, it changed the narrative from executive supremacy. Now president was bounded by the advice of judiciary. So who had a control in judicial appointment? The judiciary itself. So again, after the second judge's cases, the judicial primacy was established in the appointment of Supreme Court and High Court judges, and the collegium, of course, would consist of CJI plus the two senior most judges of Supreme Court. Now in the year 1998, we had this third judge's case. It was basically as felt that this collegium had a very narrow, let's say, or a very, let's say, less representative body. Only CGI plus two senior most judges is going to create a situation where again there is some kind of favoritism would come up. Let's say, just a hypothetical scenario, assume that the CGI and the two senior most judges have a biasness toward a particular judge, that again they feel that this is good and this is more good as per our opinion. So that biases might come up in the collegium decision making, and that's why the collegium, the scope of collegium was expanded in the third judge's cases. It basically told that the collegium who is recommending the names of judges to be appointed for Supreme Court and High Court would consist of Chief Justice of India plus four senior most judges of Supreme Court. So again, it basically expanded the let's say composition of this collegium system, so that again there would be no cases of biasness of favoritism in the judicial appointment process. So this is the current system which we follow till now. It had went through a, let's say a little bit of shock in the year 2014 and 15, but again now this is the current process of appointment of judges. We are the current system tells, let's say I'll explain you that again. There's a slight difference between that of Supreme Court and High Court. So the current system tells that in the matters of appointment of judges of India, we follow the third judge's cases, and it is of course due to what? Not an act of parliament. It is the judicial interpretation of the text of the constitution which is done by the judiciary itself. There is no parliament involvement in the appointment process of the judiciary. Clear? So it is based, the whole entire process is under a document which we call as a memorandum of procedure. So what is this memorandum of procedure? It is basically a document which outlines the maybe how exactly we are going for the judicial appointments transfers, and that is basically coming to an agreement between the judiciary and the government. So that is basically idea. So whatever is the appointment process, transfer process, it is mentioned in this memorandum of procedure. It consists two things: collegium system of Supreme Court appointment, collegium system for High Court appointments, and basically going by the idea of creating or maybe insulating judiciary from the executive interference. And why it is necessary, just tell me an idea that again you understand. If you look at the number of cases in the country, one of the litigant in most of the cases is the government. So assume a situation कि judiciary or the judicial appointments are maybe on the basis of executive interference. For example, president is appointing, right? So president is a part of the executive. We also understand that again the major litigant in one of the cases of all the cases which is in the Supreme Court and the High Court, one of the litigant is the government. So there is a chance that again if judicial appointments are done by the executive, there would be a maybe a situation where again judiciary there would be some kind of conflict of situation creation, wherein let's say judiciary is going to give maybe judgments on cases where again one of the litigant is the government itself. Now judiciary also knows ki my appointment will be done by the government itself. So do you think there would be some kind of, or there is a situation of fairness unfairness would come down into the whole picture, and that is the reason that again why executive interference is not maybe desired in the judicial appointments in India. Why? Because one of the litigant in majority of the cases which is before the judiciary, one of the litigant is the government of India, right? So this is something which has discussed. Now, so for Supreme Court judges appointment, we have a collegium system, which of course consists of Chief Justice of India plus the four senior most judges of the Supreme Court. So again, this is the collegium. President is asking that again, who do you think are the new judges to be appointed to the Supreme Court? So the collegium gives the name to the president. Again, president basically appoints. That is the basic idea. And again, they considered the common notion is ki on these basic grounds, seniority, merit, regional representation, diversity, background checks for the government, all of these are the criterias on the basis of which the collegium recommends the name to the president of India. That is a basic perception. Now, for High Court judges appointment, there is a slight difference in the collegium composition. So we have a two level of collegium over here. So first, in the respective High Court, wherein there is going to be a appointment, there is going to be a collegium will be constituted at the High Court level itself, which will consist of the Chief Justice of the respective High Court plus the two senior most judges. So again, they will basically recommend that on the basis of certain criterias ki who are the persons who are eligible to be appointed as the judges of that particular High Court. Now they will give the name to the governor and chief minister, and again then the chief minister would give that set of names to the Chief Justice of India through the law minister. Clear? Now at Supreme Court, once the name are being given from here to here, then there would be constitution of another collegium. So the recommendations which are sent by the respective state with respect to the appointment of judges of the High Court, it will come down to the CJI of India. Now CJI will again constitute one more collegium which will consist of Chief Justice of India plus two senior most judges of Supreme Court. Now they will consider the names which have been given to them by the respective states, that how fit they are to be appointed as the judges of that specific High Court. Now there is one more addition. Again, it tells ki basically the collegium at the Supreme Court level can consider, or there is a plus thing that again, let's say in Supreme Court there are many judges, so many of these judges must have at the tenure of the judiciary, they must have come across respective state high courts. So there have been some let's say time of their let's say judicial career where again they would have been serving as a judge of respective high court or as a chief justice of the respective high court. So let's say, just an example, let's say we are going to appoint judge for the High Court of Delhi or maybe High Court of Chhattisgarh, right? So there is chances ki in Supreme Court there would have been some judges who would have served at any point of time in their career in that respective High Court. So the process tells ki they are also need to be just consulted, not concurrence, only consultation. So again, the collegium at Supreme Court level might consider consulting the such number of judges or judges who have a familiarity with the respective High Court in which appointment is going to be made. As simple as that, right? So the of course here is a High Court collegium is going to give name to Supreme Court collegium. Supreme Court collegium will give to the government of India, and the president will appoint the judges of the respective High Court. That is a process of appointment which we follow as of now until present time also. Clear? So what is the process we have discussed? Now this led to something, a change in 2014. There was many criticism against the appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court and the collegium system, that they're not transparent, they're not accountable, and I'll discuss all of those. And that has led to this National Judicial Appointment Commission Act, which was passed by the Parliament through the 99th Constitutional Amendment Act. So now, until now, the appointment process was done through which process? The judicial interpretation. Now, for the very first time, Parliament came up and it basically interpreted Article 124, Clause 2 and 217, that again the process of appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court, we are interpreting the Article 124 and 217, and we are telling we should go for something called as National Judicial Appointment Commission. So this is a body which will be recommending the names to the president, that who are the judges who are going to be appointed for High Court and Supreme Court respectively, right? So basically this act tried, or the constitutional amendment tried to replace the collegium system of appointment of judges in India. Again, trying, the idea was that there is less transparency and checks and balances. It is not present in the current collegium system appointment. What is checks and balances? So in India, we have something called as separation of power. We have three organs, that is legislature, executive, and the judiciary, and their powers and functions are very clearly demarcated. So there is an idea of separation of power. Legislature is going to do the task of lawmaking, executive for the implementation process, judiciary for providing justice, for interpreting the constitution, for checking whether the law made by the parliament is correct, incorrect, and many other scenarios. Again, all of them are having separation of their powers. But unlike the United States, let's say the constitution, we have something called as separation of power, but we do not have watertight, let's say, separation of power. We have something called as checks and balances. So that is something, if any organ of the government should not overpower the entire working system of the democratic system of the country. That is why we have a doctrine of separation of power with checks and balances. This is where, if let's say judiciary is doing something which is very incorrect, so again legislator or the executive organ can step up and do, or maybe let's say correct that particular decision or the process which was followed by the judiciary. Similarly for the other two organs as well. So that is an idea of checks and balances. So under this NJAC, the intention was that the entire judicial appointment is only done by judiciary. We live in a country of course, India is a democratic country, and the people, again, the democracy with the underlying idea is what? Rule by the people, for the people, of the people. So again, but we have created one organ, that is judiciary, again, who is going to do the task of justice in the country, who is going to interpret the constitution of the country under which we as citizens of the country are staying. But the appointment process of the judges was very much under the scope of judiciary itself. And this is something which has led to the idea of creation of this NJAC, wherein there has to be some more transparent mechanism of appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court, right? So again, basically this NJAC Act told that the collegium or the commission who is going to recommend the names to the President of India, that who are going to be the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, will consist of number one, CGI, two senior most judges of the Supreme Court. They also told, this is where again the executive interference came up. The Union Law Minister, which is again an executive organ of the government, plus two eminent jurists. So these two eminent jurists will be any person from the civil society, and they will be selected again by a body consisting of the Prime Minister of India, the Chief Justice of India, and the leader of opposition, right? So this is a 6-member commission which was constituted under the National Judicial Appointment Commission Act, who will be recommending the names of appointment of judges to Supreme Court and High Court. But Again, as I discussed, Supreme Court or the judiciary, in fact, is the interpreter of the Constitution, wherein there is a confusion. Ki how should we interpret the text of the Constitution? It is judiciary who is going to interpret us and give us the essence of that text of the Constitution. So, Supreme Court in the following year 2015 is basically declared this 99th Constitutional Amendment Act as null and void. I'll discuss again. So many a times there is a common perception ki, let's say, constitution makers have visualized something for the country and then they have made this constitution for us. So there is a possibility, and it was seen after subsequent years of the making of the constitution, that parliament time and again was changing something in the constitution. It was amending the constitution, it was interpreting the constitution, it sometimes changed the fundamental rights as well. So Supreme Court in the very famous Keshavananda Bharti case of 1973, it told and it defined something called as basic structure of the constitution. Okay, sir, it is very important to understand the constitution makers have made the constitution visualizing India in some manner, and we need to respect that. Again, it is obvious that again with society changing there have to be some amendments to the current constitution, but that does not mean you can change its philosophy, you can change the essence of the constitution. And this was something which was clearly told in the famous Keshavananda Bharti case of 1973, that again parliament can change anything in the constitution, but that change should not violate the basic structure of the Indian constitution. But there is no clear mention in the text of the constitution because it is a judicial interpretation. So basic structure, what is the basic structure, how should we understand what is basic structure which cannot be amended with parliament, is not clear. And time and again Supreme Court through various judgments has discussed and has defined that what constitutes the basic structure of the Indian constitution. And one of the basic structures or the basic structures of Indian constitution is independence of judiciary. So independence of judiciary means कि judiciary should be independent from the other two organs of the government. But with this NJAC, the appointment process led to what? कि apart from CGI and two senior most judge, there would be one law minister, which is which organ of the government? The executive organ of the government. There will be two eminent jurists. Who will appoint them? The prime minister, CGI plus the leader of opposition. So again, an interference from the legislative organ of the government itself. But we have a basic structure of the constitution which tells that what? Independence of judiciary is a basic structure doctrine. So the NJAC Act was declared as null and void because it violated the basic structure of the Indian Constitution, which tells we need to maintain independence of judiciary. And it is something this is very important as well, because you understand, again as I discussed, ki judiciary is going to be independent to ensure that again justice is given in a very fair manner, right? So that's the only reason that again Supreme Court had declared this NJAC Act as null and void, because it violated basics. Number one, it threatened the judicial independence. Number two, the government could lead to the appointment process would be politicized with this whole NJAC system, and the veto powers of eminent persons could stall appointment process, because again the commission of 6 members, people had veto power that again they can come, let's say the CGI and the two senior most judges are recommending some name, but the eminent jurist telling you we are not aligning with your viewpoint of these names. So there is a process and there's a system of veto powers. So this would create some kind of delays in judicial appointment with the veto powers which are being given to the eminent jurist. Clear? So the outcome was that the collegium system got restored, and again court invited suggestions to improve the appointment process of judiciary. Very important thing over here. Supreme Court told if you feel, let's say the appointment process of judiciary or the judges of Supreme Court and High Court is not transparent, not accountable, you give us some kind of proposals that how we are going to change this appointment process to make it more transparent and accountable. So that brings us to the topic that what are the current problem with the appointment process of or the collegium system what we follow as of now. So the collegium system, it is being discussed that again the process is very opaque. Opaque means ki if Supreme Court or the collegium is selecting some of the judges and recommending that names to the president for appointment process, so on what basis they are selecting, what is the criteria what they are doing, on what basis some names are suggested, some names are rejected, there is complete non-transparency in that appointment process. That is a one major demerit with the current collegium system what we have, right? So that there is no reasons which are given for selections and rejections. Number two, accountability deficit, right? So the judiciary is not answerable to any person with respect to appointing the or maybe recommending the names of judges of Supreme Court and High Court. So we live in a country of democracy. So as we discussed, we have chosen the representatives who are making law for us. We elect them, we appoint them, and again that's how we follow indirect democracy in the country. But when it comes to judiciary, does people of the country will have any say in the appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court? So where does democracy comes in the picture of judicial appointments? So do we follow a process which is democratic in nature? No. And that is where there is no accountability with respect to the organ of judiciary, that who it will be accountable for appointments for judges of Supreme Court and High Court, right? That is the second problem. The third is exclusionary principles. Again, this whole idea of non-accountability, this whole idea of opacity in the appointment process, it has led to underrepresentation of some sections of society. We have less number of SC judges, we have less number of ST judges, we have less number of OBC judges. There is less female participation in the judiciary or in the judges of Supreme Court and High Court. So this opaqueness, this accountability deficit has led to under representation or less amount of diversity among the judges of Supreme Court and High Courts of India. Then no constitutional basis. Again, the process what we are following, the collegium system, there is no mention of it in the constitution. It is just the judicial interpretation, right? So there can be a possibility that the appointment process may not be transparent. Judiciary has interpreted it, and then again through the three judges cases we are currently following the process of appointment. But what if the appointment process is not transparent, accountable, and exclusionary? Does it have any constitutional basis? No. So again, it is created through judicial pronouncements. And the last one is again vacancies. Many times we have seen that again due to center and collegium differences, there is a delay in the appointment process of judges as well. There is an idea of alleged favoritism. Again, just a hypothetical scenario. Imagine if the CGI and the four senior most judges have some kind of biasness toward a particular judge and they want let's appoint him as the judge of respective High Court and Supreme Court. Something called as favoritism can come up in the judicial appointment process as well. So that is one other situation or scenarios through by which this collegium system is not discussed to be transparent, accountable, and there are chances of favoritism in the judicial appointment process. So these are the concerns with respect to the collegium system. But we came up with National Judicial Appointment Commission, but it also had some kind of problems. Number one was the risk of executive interference. And again, in the basic structure doctrine, we have clearly told that independence of judiciary is the basic structure of Indian Constitution, right? So if NJAC is going to come up, it is going to have members of legislature and judicial executive interfering in the matters of judicial appointment process. It is a violation of the basic structure doctrine. So again, it is completely null and void altogether, right? So eminent persons means the two persons who are in the let's say commission, who are coming from civil society who are appointed by the Prime Minister of India plus CGI plus the leader of opposition, there are chances that they can be influenced by the government, right? Then the law minister again adds a political weight because he also has a say in the appointment process. Again, interference with the executive member. It could weaken the whole idea of separation of power. We have separation of power, we have checks and balances, but again, this is overpowering of maybe executive and the legislature in the judicial appointment processes. And there was a fear of committed judiciary which is going to be loyal to the government, because if government have a say in the appointment process of the judges, Supreme Court and High Court, how can you ensure that judges would not favor the government in cases where again one of the litigant is government, because they have a perception if we are favoring government, we have a high chances of appointing in the judiciary itself. So these are the some practical problems with respect to the implementation of NJAC, and that's the reason why Supreme Court has declared this null and void. But now why? Again, we have discussed the current system also has some kind of flaws and problems. NJAC has also some flaws and problem. Supreme Court has also asked us, ki please tell us and recommend us ki on what do you think that what could make the whole process of appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court more transparent, more accountable. They have asked for public opinion. So we came up with currently these are the possible solutions which can be given is collegium plus model. Collegium we have discussed. So judges plus appoint some independent members, right? Independent members who will also have a say in the appointment process of judges. They can again see whether the process of appointment of judges which are made by the collegium is transparent. Maybe representation is also considered, diversity parameter also considered. Some independent members apart from judiciary, not from executive and legislature, but some independent members should be there for along with the collegium system, which is going to make the process more transparent in nature, and all the reasons of selections and rejections should be kept in a recorded manner. That is going to make the process or the system more accountable. That is one proposed way. Then one is revive the NJAC model, limit the role of executive, right? Let's say eminent persons, make them truly independent. Make sure that again they in no manner they are getting influenced from the government itself, right? And this is going to safeguard the idea of judicial independence only, which was the ground for revocation or declaring this whole idea of NJAC null and void. So the idea of null and void of making NJAC was what? It is again violating the basic structure of independence of judiciary. So make sure maybe let's say amend the NJAC provisions, make sure that again the appointment process of NJAC, the commission which is there, is not maybe influenced by the executive or the legislature or altogether the government, to make it independent. Or the whole idea of memorandum of procedure, which is a document outlined by the government and judiciary regarding the appointment of judges of Supreme Court and High Court, you include diversity criteria in that also. Key diversity, maybe there are underrepresentation of what we saw, SCs, STs, OBCs, women. You include that as a process mandatory for consideration of judges of appointment of Supreme Court and High Court, right? You fixed the timeline of appointment process so that again there is no delay in the appointment of judges, because we have a huge pendency of cases. Currently Supreme Court is working on its full capacity, but again the delay should not happen. That has also to be included in the memorandum of procedure very clearly. And greater disclosure, that again what are the reasons. Also tell the people of the country that again on what basis have you selected a particular person as a judge of a Supreme Court or High Court. Why have you rejected some of the persons, on what basis, what are the reasons. That is going to make the process entirely transparent. And again judiciary can also be held accountable in the appointment process of judges of Supreme Court and High Court. So now we come to an end. So this is where the new let's say current event which has been there, where again Chief Justice of India has asked and has only maybe told that again we are going to consider the PIL seeking revival of NJAC. Let's see how this happens, how Supreme Court is interpreting the whole appointment process of judiciary in India. So a very, very important, let's say, series of judgments coming. If Supreme Court is going to consider the whole plea, the entire process is going to be changed entirely. The new interpretation is going to come up with respect to appointment of judges, Supreme Court. A lot of things is going to happen. Let's keep a track on it. And again, we will also come up with any kind of updates which are coming up with the current appointment process of judges in India. So till the next time, thank you so very much.